If you're watching this video, I know a couple of things about you. I know you're over 40. I know you've probably got back pain, and if you don't have it today, you've either had it or you're about to have it, because statistically, 85% of people have got an undiagnosed spine issue. They just happen to be pain-free right now. Now, when it comes to developing core stability, we need to differentiate between core strength and core stability. They sound very similar things, but the easiest way to think about core strength is that's when you're doing something like a sit-up or a Russian twist, for instance. These movements where I create movement and I use the muscles to create that action, we can call those core strength. When I resist those movements, I've got core stability. So when you think about core stability, it's actually my ability to resist flexion and rotation of the spine, and that means really everything from my knees to my hips is involved in core stability. So what kind of exercises do we need to get us out of back pain and increase core stability so we can go back to all the activities we love? The first and biggest problem that most people have is they've stopped being a hunter-gatherer. We're a million-year-old hunter-gatherer. We're designed to be up and moving around for long periods of time. We are not designed to be sat down for extended periods of time. When you sit down for extended period of time, two things happen. The first is that your glutes stop working properly, and your glutes are really important, not just to stand you upright and walk around, but as part of that core stability network that we've developed for all the muscles between our hips and our ribs. The second part is that without meaning to, you will probably start to create a little bit of lumbar flexion. That's when your lower back rounds out, and that's the beginning of the mechanism that can cause disc issues. So we've got to get you out of that. The two first exercises we need to focus on are one, getting back into extension, and we can just use something simple like Mackenzie standing back extensions and lying lock clams to do these two things. The Mackenzie standing back extensions will start to get your spine back into extension and out of flexion, start to move the disc the way it needs to be moved, and the lock clams will start to fire up those glutes and get them working again to root that spinal stability that we really need. The next step is we want to really fire up those glutes and get them working properly. My good friend Andrew Locke, the guy who developed the lock clam, he came up with the lock hip big three, and these three movements are ideal for really getting the glutes fired up before you do any other activity or in a warm-up setting or in a rehab setting. And that gets us to the component where we actually start worrying about the muscles in this section here rather than just the muscles between the hips and the ribs. Now we want to start focusing on the trunk muscles to make sure they're actually providing stability. We've got more than just a few of these, and the easiest way to think about your core is that it's actually more like a can than anything else. It's got a front, a back, it's got sides, and it's got a top and a bottom to it. The front is called rectus abdominis. That's the six-pack muscle. That's the one that everyone's very familiar with when they start talking about abs. But we've got internal and external obliques, which run diagonally and in opposite directions. We've got a muscle called transverse abdominis, which is a very deep internal abdominal muscle that operates a little bit like a weightlifting belt that exists inside you. Then we've got lower back muscles that hold our spine in space. We've got some that are quite long and run multiple lengths of our spine, and we've got some that only run segment to segment within the spine. The top of the can is the diaphragm and the bottom is the pelvic floor. So you can see we've really got quite a lot of muscles we need to worry about when it comes to developing core stability, even after we've got the spine moving properly with the extensions and the clams. So how do we cover all these movements really with just a few things that we want to focus on? No one wants to be doing core or ab work for half an hour at a time. What we need to do is come up with a few movements that are really, really important for our stability and our abdominal health so that we can buffer any movement that goes on at the spine and resist that flexion and rotation that led to the sore back in the first place. The easiest place to start is with what's called the RKC plank. Now, most people get this plank wrong, and the reason they get it wrong is because all they do is they make the shape. The RKC plank isn't about just being in a plank position, but about developing maximum muscular tension in all muscles while you're in that position. So while I'm in the plank, I'm squeezing my legs as hard as possible. I'm actively trying to draw my kneecaps up into my groin. I'm squeezing my butt as hard as I can. I'm driving my feet into the floor behind me. I'm bracing my abs as hard as I can. I'm pulling down against the floor to engage my lat as much as I can within this plank. And what you'll find when you do the plank this way, you won't be doing 2-minute planks and 3-minute planks. You're maybe going to get 30 seconds. In fact, a 30-second RKC plank done at maximum contraction is a nearly all-out effort for most people. So don't be surprised if you only get 15 to 20 seconds at a very high level. The next exercise we need to focus on is the side plank. Now again, most people just assume the position and look kind of like a banana balanced on their elbow rather than actually something that looks strong and controlled. Take all the lessons from the RKC plank and now transfer it to lying on your side. So I'm in this position here, I need to be pulling back with my elbow. I need to push my hips forward so my body's in a straight line and squeeze my abs and legs as hard as possible. I need to make sure there's no sag at all and my body's in a completely straight line from shoulder to ankle. Once I'm in that position, tense abs as hard as you can and really work hard to be there. These are about developing control, not about seeing how long you can last. And like any gym exercise, they respond best to maximum effort, not minimal effort. The final one is an exercise stolen from the McGill Big Three. If you know who Stuart McGill is, you know he's the granddaddy of spine health. This trunk curl up stops you being able to flex the spine by placing the legs in a flexed and extended position. By flexing one hip and extending the other, the pelvis is locked in place, meaning all the activation takes place here abdominally. Final exercise is the bird dog. The bird dog is a great exercise to start developing hip and shoulder control while controlling the trunk. Again, the purpose of the core is to maintain neutral spine while forces are trying to perturb it. That means if I move my arms or my hips, that there's forces acting at either end of my spine seeking to make me lose control, and core stability stops me losing that control. So the bird dog is actually quite an advanced exercise in that regard. We can soup it up here with the use of a Cook band as well, which really makes me work hard into hip extension with the leg that's going back. And these few exercises, the RKC plank, the side plank, and the McGill curl up and the bird dog, or the banded bird dog if we're going for the turbo version, are the only exercises you really need to develop core control. You can put these into your warm-up as part of an activation series to get everything fired up and have you ready to train heavy, even post-injury. Now, on a personal note, I've seen my mother put these into practice in her 70s. We use these in her rehab process to have her go from so painful she could barely walk to setting world records and winning world championships in the deadlift. This was the backbone of her rehab program. These simple few exercises, it just means you have to do them every single day. Now, if you like the information and you want to see more about back rehab, hit the link below in the description. It'll take you to my website where I've got a back care PDF for you to download free of charge.